On the 22nd of September 1993, in the early hours of the morning, the captain of a towboat on a river in Alabama would be woken from sleep by a gentle jolt. The ship had bumped into something in the heavy fog that hung over the river. But the captain wasn't alarmed. The impact had been slight, perhaps just a brush against the riverbank. He got up and went to investigate, entirely unaware that the jolt he had felt was the precursor to one of the worst accidents in the history of a major transportation company. Alabama is a state in the southeastern US, resting between Mississippi and Georgia, just above the Gulf of Mexico. As a result of its location, it has become a melting pot of various industries. One of the most prominent is the Port of Mobile, through which passes thousands of tons of cargo each year. The Mobile River is a bustling waterway, seeing not only cargo ships and cruise liners, but also smaller tugboats and towboats too. One such towboat was the MV Movilla, operated by Warrior and Gulf Navigation. This small but powerful vessel had traversed the waters of Alabama for years without incident. On the 22nd of September 1993, the Movilla's assignment was to push 6 fully loaded barges up the Mobile River to Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. The crew consisted of Captain Andrew Stabler, pilot Willie Odem, and 2 deckhands. At the helm was Willie Odem, who had taken over from Captain Stabler so that the captain could rest. Odem had been warned by a passing boat that there was dense fog ahead. Acknowledging this, he slowed the Movilla to a relative crawl. As it approached Catfish Bayou, the Movilla entered the fog, which was even denser than anticipated. Visibility was almost zero. Not even the Movilla's powerful searchlights could penetrate the gloom. Odem decided to moor the boat and its barges until visibility improved. He ordered a deckhand to try and throw a mooring line to snag a tree, but 2 attempts to do so failed. At this point, visibility was so incredibly reduced that he ordered the deckhand to return to the wheelhouse so that he would not be injured or fall overboard. As Odem attempted to get his bearings, he observed on the radar that there was an obstacle directly ahead. Thinking this was another boat, he reduced the Movilla's speed still further, but it was too late. At that moment, there was a small shudder that shook the vessel. This woke Captain Stabler, who would later describe the bump as so light that it didn't even knock any items off shelves. Stabler found Odem shaken up from the bump and unable to control 2 of the barges. The crew began assessing the damage and found that nobody was injured. At that moment, though, a swishing sound was heard in the fog ahead of them, followed by a loud crash and a streak of bright orange light. What they had just seen and heard was, in fact, a train. The Amtrak No. 2, also known as the Sunset Limited, had just crashed at full speed into the murky waters of Big Bayou Canot. The train consisted of 3 locomotives, a baggage car, a crew dormitory, and 6 passenger cars, and had departed from Mobile just 20 minutes prior. The other boat the Movilla had hit was, in actuality, a railroad bridge. The impact, slight as it had seemed, had been sufficient to dislodge one of the spans, which the Sunset Limited had hit at 112 kilometers, or 70 miles, per hour. This had launched the train into the air, ruptured the fuel tanks, and sent all locomotives, the baggage car, the crew dormitory, and 2 double-decker superliner coaches crashing into the water below. It was at this moment that Willie Odem realized the mistake he'd made. He had thought he was on the Mobile River, but he wasn't. In the fog, he had mistakenly steered the ship and its barges down Big Bayou Canot, a non-navigable branch of the river where no ship should ever be. Realizing what had happened, the crew of the Movilla immediately tied off their barges and steered for the crashed railcars. Smoke and fog combined to make visibility even worse. Fearing the Movilla might hit people in the water, the crew lowered a skiff into the river to look for survivors. For passengers of the Sunset Limited, the situation was dire. Fuel from the locomotives caught fire during the crash and was spreading in the water. Many victims were trapped in the sinking coaches, while another coach rested precariously a third of the way off the damaged bridge. The assistant conductor, who was located in the dining car near the rear of the train, sent out a mayday call, which was picked up by a CSX transportation freight train. The freight train forwarded this call to dispatch, who then contacted emergency services. Back on the train, various 911 calls were being made, but little could be done in the immediate aftermath, as the bridge they derailed on was extremely isolated. The survivors had to struggle on their own. One survivor, Amtrak conductor John Turk, recalled trying to save his friend and colleague Ronald Quaintance from the burning crew car. Mr. Quaintance was asking others to please get him out, to please put out the flames. They couldn't get the door open, they couldn't separate the equipment. The flames became too great. They had to abandon him. He said the Lord's Prayer, the 23rd Psalm, and if you ever heard his voice once, you didn't have to be there to hear him saying those prayers. That voice haunted me for a long time. Ronald could not be reached in time and did not survive. Other survivors were struggling to escape. Those who were able to clamber or swim away from the wreckage were not out of danger, as the water was contaminated with fuel and home to snakes and alligators. Many had severe cuts, bruises, and burns. Others had broken bones. The few who could swim did their best to direct the injured to safer spots and floating debris. A deckhand from the Movilla was able to pick up 17 survivors from the water, including an attendant from the lounge car. As this attendant boarded the Movilla, he ran into Willie Odem, tending to the injured. He later recalled a conversation with Odem. First, he said, "I'm going to lose my job." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I hit that bridge." I said, "It was an accident." He said, "No, I might even go to the penitentiary." I said, "For a freak accident?" He said, "No, because the Coast Guard don't believe that." The Coast Guard eventually did reach the scene 45 minutes after the crash. The remoteness of the location made it difficult to transport survivors away from the site. Temporary roads had to be cleared to transport the injured away from the wreck. By the time morning came, the devastating nature of the accident was clear. A total of 47 people had died, including the locomotive crew, 2 onboard staff, and 42 passengers. It was, and still is, the worst accident in Amtrak's history. The National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, was soon on the case. It was obvious that a catastrophic failure had occurred, and it was up to them to piece together how the sequence of events caused such a tragedy. It was obvious to the investigators that the Movilla's barges had struck the bridge, as damage marks on one of the surviving bridge piers matched up with damage on the barges. But what events had led to this disastrous impact? They interviewed pilot Willie Odem and performed drug tests on him, which came back negative. They discovered he had not been fully trained to read radar, and had only 3 years of experience navigating the waters of the Mobile area, and even less in poor visibility. He testified he was unaware he was heading in the wrong direction, and that he still believed he was on the Mobile River. It was also found that the Movilla was not equipped with charts or a compass to reference their position and heading. These pieces of equipment were not legally required at the time. Turning their attention to the Sunset Limited, reports from the surviving crew found the engineer had been following all the regulations to the letter, including radioing the signals they passed. Testimonies from the crew revealed the last signal before the bridge was green, and there were no indications of any danger whatsoever, not even a sound from the horn or any brake application. The last contact anyone had with the engineer was him thanking the assistant conductor for bringing him some coffee. Investigators found the signal stayed green despite the bridge impact because the track circuit had remained intact. The rails had not been broken, but merely deformed. Had they cracked or broken, the signals would immediately have switched to danger, giving the engineer on board the Sunset Limited a chance to react. Why had such a relatively slight impact deformed the rails? The bridge, when constructed by the Louisville and Nashville Railroad in 1909, had been designed so that it could be converted into a swing bridge should ships ever need to pass. Ships, in the end, didn't need to pass, so the bridge was never fully converted. However, it was never properly secured either. When the barge slammed into the span, the bridge easily swung out by about 1 meter, or 3 feet. Not enough to break the track, but enough to derail the rapidly approaching Sunset Limited. The investigation also discovered one final unfortunate detail. The train was only where it was due to a 30-minute delay in New Orleans to fix an air conditioner and a faulty toilet. If these had been fixed at the next stop, the accident would have been avoided altogether. After the reports were published, several changes were made. The bridge over Big Bayou Canot was rebuilt and replaced with a fixed structure. Better training was implemented for river pilots, particularly with regard to bridge safety. Pilot Willie Odem was cleared of any wrongdoing as he had acted reasonably given his equipment and level of training. Despite this, he never worked on the waterways again. The accident reportedly left him a broken man, haunted by the sounds and sights of that night. His rescue efforts did not go unrecognized by the survivors, and many expressed gratitude for his quick response in helping the injured. One man who had burnt his feet escaping the train later noted that he had been given slippers by Odem to protect them. Warrior and Gulf Navigation paid survivors a total of $1.4 million in a settlement. The Sunset Limited continues to run, although since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, it no longer travels as far as Mobile. The Mobile River continues to be a vital route for freight, and in the years since the crash, neither it nor the Sunset Limited has seen another accident of this scale.